Welcome to another edition of Maverick University. I'm your host, David Hallberg. Joining me today is Dr. Mike Hall, Vice President of Providence Baptist College. Thanks for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. I wanted to talk a little bit with you about something that you've been teaching on for years, and you personally taught me this topic and has really influenced my life and my viewpoint on everything as a Christian. It's appropriate music, because music is so integral in every person's life. Everybody loves music, and especially for the Christian, we find that maybe it's a new Christian. They're figuring it out that, wait, the stuff I was listening to, I shouldn't listen to anymore. Or maybe it's a teenager and a Christian who grew up in a Christian home that's struggling with, what music should I be listening to? This is what my friends are listening to. Why shouldn't I listen to this? Is it that bad? And so I want to address that issue. Is there right and wrong music for a Christian? And then, go up the next step. And if so, then how do we know?
Sure. Well, we kind of have the impossible task of trying to answer that or address that issue in the short amount of time we have. So our goal is going to be just to hit some highlights and get people thinking a little bit about what's appropriate and inappropriate as far as music's concerned. Mm-hmm. But the short answer is, yes, there is music that's inappropriate for a Christian to listen to. Mm-hmm. And so it's incumbent upon us then to be able to define what that is in a fashion that makes sense. So we're going to try to boil it down just as simply as we possibly can. And really the first problem that comes, first couple of problems that really come in with it are, one, everybody likes music. Now, that's a problem because when Satan tries to influence and to affect us, he's got one area that he certainly can prioritize that can affect everybody. We don't all like the same music, but we all like some type of music.
Yeah, it's universal.
Yes, and of course we have even in Ezekiel where the Bible talks about that Satan was created with tabrets and pipes, which are musical instruments. And then over in Isaiah, it talks about him wanting to ascend to be equal with the Most High. And it's entirely possible, and I'm speculating here, but it's entirely possible that Satan was the music coordinator or music chief of music in all of heaven, the worship leader, if you will. And he got tired of honoring and glorifying God through all of the music was there and decided he wanted some for himself. And of course, pride was the main thing that cost him. And the Lord cast him out of heaven. And he patrols here on this earth trying to influence as many as he possibly can to turn their backs on the Lord, or at the very least be a terrible testimony. Sure. And what better area to do it in than music, which he is an expert at, and then that all of us enjoy.
Sure.
So it's kind of a ready-made situation. And I think personally that for the Christian especially, there's probably no area that needs more attention than that, because it is so important.
Sure.
And then one other little piece of that goes with it, though, is we've also got to be careful that we're not influenced by simply what we like or what we don't like. I've made the comment before that just because we like it doesn't make it right. And just because we don't like it doesn't necessarily make it wrong. Years ago, when I was in the service, I got reassigned to Alabama. Cindy and I went down there, and we lived there for 3 years. Of course, we were northern kids. We were born and raised in Iowa. Both of us went to the University of Iowa studying classical music. I studied a little jazz music. And so that was our background, a little bit more formal music in the churches. And we get down to Alabama, and the first day we walk in, we're sitting there, and the special music got up, and it goes, "I'm standing on the rock of age." And I'm going, this is a skit, right? It's a skit. Because I'd never heard anything like that. I was not familiar with Southern gospel music or any kind of music like that. But it wasn't a skit. We were in a new world at that time. And then it was funny because a couple of months later, they asked Cindy to sing a special. She has a beautiful voice, highly trained. And she got up and sang the song, "Oh, how I love him, how I adore him." And just, up north there, she sang it for a conference, and people just went crazy on it. Down there, people are frowning and scowling at her like, what does she think she is, singing all operatic and stuff like that, And so we're in a new world.
Yeah, two worlds collide.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And for 3 years, we lived in Alabama, and I appreciate so much the Lord doing that for us, because it gave us a real appreciation of, we love Southern gospel music, done right, done well, and appropriately, but we fell in love with Southern gospel music, and it has helped, I think, bring a balance, at least in my way of thinking when I'm analyzing music and what's acceptable or not. And I think that helped an awful lot in so doing it. So when we look at the issue, we have to realize everybody likes some kind of music, but you just got to be careful because that's based a lot of times on your upbringing
Sure.
or your background, whatever the case may be. And so we have to understand, though, that just because we like it doesn't make it right.
It's not based on taste.
That's exactly right. And then we have to understand that Satan's back there orchestrating most of the stuff that's going on with this in this area. And it can be a real problem, especially in our young people in the good conservative churches that we have. So that's one thing that we have to keep our eye on all the time, is that the standard doesn't slip, because it's so easy to do when our emotions are involved with this
Sure.
particular thing.
Yeah, you let one thing go, then it's another step, then it's another step, and if it's based on feeling, then your standard's going to change.
Yeah. So the first issue is that a lot of people struggle with is there wrong music for the Christian?
Yeah, we got to start there.
Is there right music? So the issue then is the morality of music, and there are people that believe that music has no moral basis. It just is, and you can. And what I'm talking about primarily here is music without words. We understand that there are words that are good and bad, and we can apply those. But I'm talking about music inherently, in and of itself. Is there a rightness and a wrongness to music? And I've heard people make the comment before, well, music's just music, and it just depends on the words that you put with it. They say, look, for example, if you play the note C on the piano, is that good or bad? Play the note F, is that good or bad? So you see, music doesn't have a morality associated with it. Well, the problem with that is you have to deal on the level of creating impressions or images in people's mind.
Sure.
And it doesn't happen with one note. It doesn't happen with one color. That's like saying red has a morality to it. It doesn't. But you put it in a beautiful work of art, and it provides some kind of an impression, then it has a morality to it.
Certainly.
And
Yeah.
the same thing is true. The letter A. If you just talk about the letter A, good or bad. Well, of course, here at college, letter A has a good connotation to it. But for the most part, it doesn't until you put it in some kind of beautiful poem, and it's one of the letters in a poem, and it communicates or gives an impression.
Even the best art out there all communicates some spiritual
That's exactly
thing.
right. That's exactly
Even
right.
paintings.
And the point holds as far as music is concerned also.
Yeah.
I can play a C on the piano. I can play an F on a piano. I can play a G on a piano in isolation.
Sure.
But as soon as I put them together, it creates an impression. So listen, for example, here. That was a major scale. Okay, listen here. That's what's called a minor scale. The first one was happier, the second one was sadder.
Yep.
Listen to this one. That's a harmonic minor scale. It kind of sounds Arabic or Middle Eastern or something along that line. Now listen to this one. Yeah, and the impression that I get in class is, oh yeah, we like it, we don't know what. Well, that's a jazz chord. It's the building blocks of jazz music itself. And so you can see they're notes on a piano that in isolation, they don't mean anything to us. But as soon as we put them together, they begin to communicate a thought. And when that happens, you're communicating morality.
Got it.
And
Okay.
so the point is then, is music moral or not? All right, well, let's look at it this way. One, does music affect us? Well, sure it does.
Yeah.
A couple of examples. Keith Richards, who was with the Rolling Stones, made the comment, every sound has an effect on the body. And he's an old rock and roll guy and knows exactly what he's doing in the area of rock music. Max Schurn, who's a musicologist from years ago, said music is the most powerful stimulus known among the perceptive processes. In other words, how we interrelate with our world around us, touch, sight, taste, whatever the case may be. Listening to music is one of the most powerful of all of those because all of us can be affected by it.
Yeah.
So the first question is, does music affect us? Well, sure it does. An example of classical music, listen to this one. All right, then how about this one? Well, both of them communicate very heavily different impressions of one another.
Mhm.
So does music affect us? Sure it does. And again, we could take a long time and continue to talk about it, but the point is, I don't think there's a song out there that doesn't affect us one way or another, secular, Christian, whatever the case may be. Every song communicates something to us, which is a basis of morality.
Mhm.
So does music affect us? Yes. Secondly, is that effect that comes upon us, is that a positive effect or is it a negative effect?
Okay.
Well, it has to be one or the other.
Yeah.
Even secular, non-sacred music is going to have an effect on us one way or another, and that
Sure.
music could very well be a folk tune that's in America's past. It could be a rock song, it could be a Christian song, whatever the case may be. The point of the matter is that effect that it has on us is going to be a positive one or a negative one.
It's not
So-
benign.
That's right. It's either right or it's wrong.
Mhm.
So if you got, does music affect us? Yes, it does.
Mhm.
And if it affects us to the positive or negative, yes, it does. Then the only last thing in there is that what's the definition of morality? Well, the definition of morality is right versus wrong.
Sure.
One of the definitions out of Webster's Encyclopedia. Morality is discriminating between right or wrong.
There you go.
Well, how much more positive or bold of a statement can you have than that?
Mhm.
So the point is, does music affect us? Yes. Does that effect have a positive or a negative effect on our lives?
Mhm.
Yes. Does that positive or negative, right versus wrong, is that the definition of morality?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. The only result after that can be then music has morality.
Okay.
That's the only last answer that you can say to this whole thing, is that if music affects us, then music has a morality to it. Now the problem is then, what are you gonna do with it?
Exactly. So the new Christian or the Christian teenager has to come to that conclusion of, okay, now what am I listening to, and is it right for me? Is
That's
it
correct.
right for a Christian to
Because
listen to?
all music is gonna have an effect on us. All music, one way or another. And then it's up to the individual to decide what is right and what is wrong to listen to.
Now, is that a hard process for somebody to go
Absolutely.
through?
Oh, sure it is. And part of what makes it hard is
Yeah.
we like it. We
Okay.
may be listening to something we like, and that's what's weighing on us, not an analysis, which we can get into a little bit later when we actually analyze music and see what's right and what's wrong in terms of the aspects of music. But what gets interfering with this is, and Satan knows what he's doing, and he brings music into our lives. I was not raised in a Christian home. I was a jazz music person. I love jazz music. I still love jazz music. The problem with that is it's inappropriate for a Christian altogether. We don't have time to go into that as detailed, just as is rock music, to be honest with you. But I like it. I still like it. I simply have to stay away from it. It's like the alcoholic. Once you acquire a taste for it, you don't lose the taste.
It's an addiction.
It's an addiction, and you have to stay
Wow.
away from it.
So
And
this is not an easy thing to kick.
No, it's not. Once you get in it, that's why we try so hard to emphasize to our young people to listen to the right kind of music right from the very beginning. And I appreciate folks that have asked us to do this, because their young people are wondering out there and are trying to sort out what's right and what's not.
Mhm.
But I maintain, and I tell it to any of my classes that I have, I maintain that inside of us, we instinctively can determine what's right or what's wrong.
Mhm.
We can understand. You may not know anything about music theory, but you listen to a song, and I believe almost every person could say that's appropriate for a church or not, or that's appropriate for a Christian or not. Years ago, we had a young guy come to a music camp that we had. It was a secular school guy, lost parents. He didn't know the song "Jesus Loves Me" from "He Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog." He didn't know the difference. And so I got him up in front of the crowd, and when we're up in front of the crowd, we made the comment, he's going to tell us, and the terminology I use, is this going to be dance music, or is this going to be march music?
Mm.
And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but the idea of the dance music is it's inappropriate, it's got backbeats in it, it's inappropriate for Christian, whereas march music's fine.
Mhm.
So all I asked him to do, so I'm going to play 10 examples for you. You tell me if it's a dance song or if it's a march.
Mhm.
So all I had to do was 10 years old. So we started the music. He had 10 samples. He went down through the 10 samples, and he was 10 for 10, exactly right. He'd listen to the song and he'd see what part of his body started to move, and that's what he identified, and he was 10 for 10.
Wow.
Knowing nothing about music, no background in it whatsoever. So what I'm saying is, inside us, there is something there already that either identifies with the music we're listening to, or there's a problem with it.
Sure.
But Satan's smart enough to know we like things that appeal to the flesh. And music that appeals to the flesh is going to be tough for someone to overcome. And you just have to decide if you're going to listen to the right thing or not. We'll give some definitions and whatnot, but the bottom line is you've got to decide that you want to listen to the right kind of music.
It seems very easy. We instinctively know what's right and wrong, but the hard part is overcoming that flesh. I was reading in Romans 7 the other day about the Apostle Paul, how he was just, despicable man. I'm misquoting it, but the wretched man that I am. The things I would, I don't, and the things I wouldn't, I do. And he's just entirely frustrated with himself. But it's this battle of flesh versus spirit, and that's what we're talking about. This is it's not just an academic issue. This is a spiritual battle. And so, I look forward to talking about how exactly breaking apart our music, figuring out, is this right? Should I be listening to this? Because there is right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll get another episode out here real quick. And make sure that you check out the next episode in the podcast. It'll be coming out shortly, and it'll describe and continue this topic for you as we continue to explore appropriate music for the Christian.